Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Coming up on the Paul Finebaum Show, live from Atlanta, it's Saban versus Smart, teacher versus student, and Tim Tebow. We'll break it all down.
What a sell. Plus, Lamar Jackson, the latest to declare for the NFL Draft, as we look at where he ranks in this year's class. Plenty more to come on one of the most exciting players in college football.
And in case you haven't heard, it's an all-SEC, I bet you have heard that, national championship. All that coming up now.
The weekend's full of surprises, from big upsets to rivalry. On the Finebaum Show, Paul's on a roll. If he don't get the best of me, call Paul.
Can I get an amen from you?
He'll make sense of it all.
Hey, at least we're rational.
Yeah, we'll call Paul.
Please don't tell my wife what's going on here in the afternoon.
There's history here, wrapped in a fresh building. The College Football Hall of Fame moved from Indiana to Georgia in 2014, where there came 977 players and 211 coaches, forever immortalized in their new high-tech downtown Atlanta home.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right next door to the College Football Hall of Fame, and it's Georgia and Alabama. They didn't meet this year for the SEC, but they'll meet for the national championship on Monday night. We welcome you to the weekend. Maybe a little early. It's Friday afternoon. Laura, Coach Chiswick, you know what it's like to be in one of these games. You look pretty calm, though.
Hey, I'm very calm right now. I don't have any dog in this fight.
You know a lot about these two teams, though, and Coach, I mean, obviously we knew after the final game on Monday what would end up happening here, but just overall, how crazy is it that there's two SEC teams in this college football playoff?
I think it's insane, but I will qualify that with this, that I think the two best teams in college football are playing. And again, that's what's great about the playoff. I thought the committee got it right with the top four. They battled it out, and now you got the top two, and obviously, there'll be some arguments on back to the top four, who those four were.
Yeah.
But look, in my opinion, they picked the right four, and you have an epic battle getting ready to happen in about 3 days.
You do indeed, and we're going to talk about it right here. The weekend has arrived, and Coach, you sat with us Monday night on the film room, and you said the coaches looked at the film. The coaches on that committee looked at the film and got it right. So now let's have a coach look at the film and see how if we can get it right for this Monday night game. How do you break it down?
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting because you have two teams that won two different ways, and that's what's really unique about this. I think Georgia went into the game, and look, they battled down to the end. When you're down at 1 point, 14 to 17 points, and you have the wherewithal to battle back against a great football team, the Heisman Trophy winner obviously playing quarterback, and find a way to win that game at the end, unbelievable. Then you have, conversely, Alabama, who dominated this football game from the beginning to the end against Clemson. They played with a chip on their shoulder. The game plan unfolded exactly the way that they had planned, or at least hoped it would. So I think you've got two great teams that won different ways, but they do mirror each other in a lot of ways too, which is going to be really interesting.
They do, and that's where I think the adjustment factor comes into play, and we saw that certainly with Georgia. The halftime adjustments are what won the game for them. They were able to make those strides in that second half because of that, and of course, obviously in double overtime too. And for Alabama, you know, one of the things that Nick Saban talked about even before he publicly said this in New Orleans is how quick that turnaround is. So a dominant defensive performance, a good enough offensive performance, a lot to build on offensively. We saw some of those wrinkles from them that were exciting, certainly Deron Payne being a big part of that. Now you say, can they flip that switch quick enough, considering that this truly, in my opinion, is good on good? I mean, everything that Alabama does well is what Georgia wants to stop and vice versa. And it's just, that part of it is fascinating. I think college football fans are in for a real treat.
everyone's not that happy, especially some of your old friends at UCF. But speaking of college football, there was another big story today. It was expected, but Lamar Jackson declared for the NFL, the former Heisman winner. Another big year. His numbers actually this year looked better than the year he won the Heisman, but nobody was stopping Baker Mayfield. He has come out to the draft. The questions have already begun about is he a quarterback or is he something else? Lamar issued a statement earlier today saying, after much discussion with my family and coaches, I have made the decision to take the next step in my career and enter the 18 NFL draft. Coach, you agree?
Well, I think that, I don't really know enough about his situation. I have seen him play enough to know that this is one phenomenal athlete. Matter of fact, the last game that I actually watched him play was against Kentucky, against their rival, and it was dealer's choice. He could run it, he could throw it. There's no one that can deny that this guy is an unbelievably gifted athlete. Now, will he fit the parameters of what an NFL team is looking for in terms of a quarterback being able to make those decisions on that level, being able to decipher all the things that the defenses will give him? That's going to be what the scouts are going to be there for, and they're going to have to do some great evaluation. He's athletically got it. It seems like coming from Bobby Petrino's offense, which does have a lot of NFL principles built in, that'll help some people in the, kind of in the assessment of him. But we'll wait and see. It's going to be interesting.
Bobby Petrino's offense is pretty complicated, as you mentioned, and they felt like, especially after a couple years in that system, that he had started to truly master it in a lot of ways. I think he needs to be drafted by a team, though, where he can wait in the wings a little bit and really be developed. And he's one of those kids that will take whatever coaching comes his way, will take that development. And he is dynamic when, think about his combine numbers and stuff. He's going to put up some great numbers. And you may say, okay, let's try him out at the quarterback spot. I imagine he'll have success there. He makes the people around him better, and kids love playing with him. If not, I could see him being fine with changing positions. Now, he is a quarterback, but he may sit there and say, whatever. That's kind of his attitude. Overall, the games that I've covered him during college, he's always been that way.
And that's a great point, Laura. With him, I think that for somebody to take him and draft him, they have to have a specific plan for this guy. And again, sometimes you have to take your offense and tweak it, to really fit his skill set. Yeah. And I think somebody will probably be willing to do that. And at worst, they say, okay, look, if he can't get this done, if we put something in schematically that'll fit him and it doesn't work, look, this guy's a blur. He's fast. He's athletic. You've seen what he does to people in space, making people miss. I mean, guys look like they're almost breaking their ankles trying to tackle this dude. So there's some place that he can play at the next level just because of his ability. But if he does become a difference maker at quarterback, schematically, they can make it fit. This guy can take a team a long way.
Yeah.
Coach, you left Auburn many years ago to go to Texas. A lot of money was at stake. I think maybe you better get back in this game. I don't know if you've been following the
Unbelievable.
news. But coordinators are making big-time money. Look at this.
Unbelievable.
Mike Elko goes to A&M. That's after LSU was able to hold on to Dave Aranda. A lot of money there. And Harlan Barnett making moves as well. First of all, this tug-of-war that's going on right now. You saw the report come out the other day that Aranda was leaving, and then LSU said, we're not letting this guy leave. He makes almost as much as the head coach. Take it from the head coaching position. He's important, but does that make you feel uncomfortable?
Well, I'll say this, Paul, that, we always talk about recruiting student athletes, and we know that's the lifeblood of any program. We know that. But so is recruiting great football coaches, particularly when you're talking about the coordinator position. And if you look at, you can take it from Jimbo Fisher's standpoint. He's an offensive guy, and he wants to dive in to the offensive part and be able to take the defense and say, hey, look, that's yours. That's why there was such a big push for Dave Aranda. Obviously, the success he's had speaks for itself, but I think LSU made a great move and said, you know what, we can't let this guy go. There's just certain guys you can't let go when you know you have half of your team that's already, trending in the direction that you want them to. You don't want to have to worry about that. And Coach O went to the administration and said, hey, look, guys, I can't lose him. I don't know what you got to do. We can't lose this guy, because I think coordinators are such an integral part of the success of a head coach, especially these days when there's so many things at this level that pull coaches in so many directions. I've had the conversations with Gus. I've had the conversations with Derek Mason the other night. He was on our show talking about how hard it is to run one side of the ball and still be able to fulfill all your obligations the other way. So, that being said, the coordinator positions now, they're starting to get paid like head coaches. It's unbelievable. They've literally doubled their pay in the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And look, as long as the head coaches keep making $11 million, $8 million, $7 million, the coordinators are going to make $2 million. Yeah. And that's the new bar. And you're going to see the trickle up effect. There's going to be more. They're going to get offered that soon. If I'm Joe Oliva in this LSU administration, I feel really confident and comfortable with this because let's say now Coach O was able to salvage the season this year. If for some reason he struggles down the stretch or they feel like they need to make a change, isn't Dave Aranda the perfect guy to be a quote-unquote coach in waiting potentially at LSU, maybe somewhere else too? I mean, this guy will be a head coach somewhere. I firmly believe that, whether it's at LSU or somewhere else. You've already got him on your staff, and he's a big part of the success that you've had this year, a big part of hopefully the success they have in the future. Yeah, I'm curious what you think about that because he looks like he looks like a head coach in waiting already. He really does. And again, we don't know what it looks like behind the scenes, but you would think with the commitment that they're making to him financially, that they think that he's good enough to be a head coach. And you're also likely to lose your offensive coordinator. And that's probably going to happen today. Yeah, and Paul, that's where the dynamic gets really interesting there because what Coach O didn't want to do, if indeed that's happening with Matt Canada, he didn't want to have to deal with two of these hires coming right off of the break, and all of a sudden you're jumping into recruiting with what? Two coordinators that are missing, so he couldn't do that. A lot of great players. You know what I mean? So all of that ties into the decision making. And that's why I think if they do make a change in offensive coordinator, it's got to be somebody like Steve Ensminger who's already on the staff because you're right, there would be way too much changeover to start trying to deal with a recruiting standpoint. There still is another signing day coming up. Yeah, everyone's forgotten about it. Everyone's forgot about that. Football never ends. Yeah, when they leave to hit the road in a day or two, those guys, they got to go back at it again. Coach will be part of the coverage all weekend long, and we'll see you again Monday night on the Film Room. Great to be here, guys. Thanks, Coach. We are heading to the break here in Atlanta. The Ferris wheel goes round and round. Will you go ride on that with me? I would, yeah. Okay, good. We'll do that later. Tim Tebow probably won't, but he is going to be here shortly. We'll ask him. We the one they talking about. We the one. We the one. We the one they talking about. We the one. We the one. We the one they talking about. You got two dominant physical teams. Deron Payne with the ball. How about it? Sonny Michel will send the Dogs home to the championship game. Georgia and Alabama for the College Football Playoff National Championship. The city of Atlanta on a Friday afternoon. Big weekend. It's cold here, but it will start heating up when the Dogs and the Tide start piling into hotels. As we welcome you back to the College Football Hall of Fame, and I'm a lot of representation of Tim Tebow in this building. Yeah, you know this place pretty well, or at least your name does. Maybe not you personally. Been here a couple times to speak at events here, but this is pretty cool. You gotta love it. It's so good for college football that there's a venue like this where so many people can come to look at their favorite teams, favorite players. It's cool. So before we talk football, I want to get your take on the NBA since you were you were with the big dogs last night at TNT. Tell us about that. With the NBA, it doesn't matter until we get to the playoffs. We pretty much already know who's going to get in. You would never know it watching television these days, though. That is true. It was fun being out with those guys like to be with Shaq and Barkley and Kenny. It was just. My favorite thing is I took a picture of this, and I might tweet it at one point, but they're notepads. Charles Barkley just wrote down OKC like 50 times. Kenny just was doodling, drawing like pictures, and Shaq had nothing. Was just tearing out pieces and like making paper airplanes and stuff. And it was all three of them. And Ernie's the only one with notes, and the rest of them just have fun. That's usually what Paul's notepad looks like. It usually just says Bama on it. Well, over and over again. Yeah, I don't, as you know, because we're together many times during the fall, I don't want to know what's going on during the show. Yeah, well, that's actually true. Tim, it feels like this has become the capital of college football, and we're talking about just this matchup in this game, and it's going to be talked about so many times, but just overall, what does this mean for all of college football that there are two SEC teams in? Laura. So glad you started that question.
Tim.
Let's talk about this.
Formal. I think it's great for college football. I think this is great for college football because they really did put in the 4 best teams. I know some people want to make the argument for Ohio State. Some people want to make the argument for UCF. And there'll always be an argument every year. But I really do believe they put in the 4 best teams. And I think some people are upset that it's a 2 SEC team championship. But the other conferences, they had their opportunities. This is 2 teams that it's not just about a conference. It's about 2 teams fighting for greatness. And both of them are on the brink of it. And they're 1 game away from going down, from maybe winning one of the best college football playoffs ever. With
right.
Baker Mayfield and everybody in it, this was such a hyped, awesome college football playoff that honestly was the most exciting for me out of all of them.
Yeah, I agree.
And Tim, I've got a tough question for you because I know you'll probably be the governor or the senator of Florida and then the president of the United States at one point. So I don't want you to lose Orlando as part of your constituency. But the people at UCF have been claiming the national championship. It was fun for a while. We all embraced it. Now they're having a parade. They're having another parade before the national championship. What do you think about all this?
I think they should celebrate it. If I was AD or president, I don't know if I would call it national championship, but I would call it undefeated season, great season, whatever you want to call it. Like, they did it. They beat Auburn. They had an undefeated season. It's awesome. Congratulations, UCF. I don't want to take anything away from you guys. Now looking forward, let's continue to try to schedule some harder teams so you can be in the top 4 competing for the real national championship. So you have the real trophy. But I think it's awesome that they're doing it. Celebrate it. All those kids, they worked so hard for this. And guess what? They had an undefeated season. But if they get one, then Auburn from 2004 gets one, right. And then there's a lot of other teams that you can start celebrating too.
Utah should get one from Urban's team.
Do what? Utah.
Urban's Utah team.
Utah.
Yeah, just go ahead and hand them out like you're going through the window at McDonald's.
Well, the one thing is, we're all still talking about him. So I believe that their athletic director is a marketing genius. I don't agree with it, but whatever. Here's the thing. At this point, we all still talk. We're talking about. We're going to keep talking about him. They're a group of 5 team that their strength of schedule is not anywhere near what you see from Power 5 teams, but still, we're talking about them, and they did do something magnificent.
And this got endorsed by Tim Tebow, so it's legit.
Tim's a UCF fan now, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely, all the way. Go Knights, go!
Go Knights! Is that what they do?
That was was that your cheerleading back to your?
Go Knights! I'm a bad cheerleader.
I don't think.
They're undefeated.
No, I wasn't.
And their claim to fame is beating Auburn, and that was a huge win. And Auburn beating Alabama and beating Georgia, meaning we beat the best team in the country, and they can make that argument. It's fine.
One of the columnists in Orlando used to cover you at
Bianchi. Remember
Mike
him?
Bianchi called this game Monday night a consolation game.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't go with that one.
Speaking of the consolation game that you wouldn't go with, let's talk about Monday night. Certainly start with quarterbacks.
Well, I think going into the Sugar Bowl, so many people were against Jalen Hurts. And did he have a great game? Was he a world beater? Absolutely not. But he was able to start the game off with momentum and handle the pressure that Kelly Bryant was not able to handle early. And I really love it. It's the 3rd or 4th play of the game. Brian Daboll motions a slot into the backfield and runs a true triple option with Jalen Hurts. And you talk about evolving to try to play to his strengths. I mean, Alabama doesn't run triple option. This isn't UCF, right? But and so they're evolving to his strengths, playing to his strengths, and I think that is something that's going to be key in this game, is getting Jalen to be comfortable, confident, and play fast. Now, he missed 2 open, easy touchdowns. The flea flicker and the one to Calvin that he ended up scrambling and hit him on late. But you might not be able to scramble versus Georgia and hit him on a wide open touchdown in the corner. So those plays he wants back, and he has to be able to hit those against Georgia.
We saw some of those things. You're talking about the triple option. We also saw the trick play to Deron Payne and all that. I mean, awesome. They have so much of that. Just give us a peek inside. When you are going throughout an entire year, how often do you practice plays like that? And even though you've only got a week to prepare for this game, how many more might they have up their sleeve?
I think they have a bunch more.
Yeah.
Every Monday and Thursday, you kind of will rep some of them and keep putting them in, take some out, put some more in. But I think they're going to have them for Jalen because he executes them pretty well. Yeah. And if nothing's there, then he scrambles and he doesn't kill you. And that's the best thing about Jalen is he doesn't put the offense in harm's way. He did one time with that fumble early in the second half. But for the most part in his career, in his 2 years, he just doesn't put the defense in a bad position. And when you have a defense playing as focused, as sound, and as physical as Alabama's defense is, you just don't want to give them a short field.
Okay, we got a freshman in the national championship game. Does that sound familiar?
This kid isn't playing like a freshman. Oh, it was nerve-wracking. Are you kidding me? Like, it was unbelievable, especially going up against Ohio State when everybody thought that they had the Heisman Trophy winner. It was unbelievable defense. We have no chance, and Urban's coming up with quotes everywhere. Some are true, some are made up, but it's just everything to motivate us.
Making stuff up?
So we were just, we went in that stadium absolutely with our hair on fire, ready to go.
You went 1 for 1 with a touchdown, though, so you must have not been that nervous.
Jake has to do more than that.
A little more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, about him, though, I feel like, especially the last half of the season, we really saw him start to throw the ball with more comfortability, especially knowing what Alabama may try to do defensively to stop their run game. How important is that aspect?
I think it's important, but I think it's important for him to be aggressive. Against Oklahoma, he had to really, first play of the game, throw a hitch route early on, check it down to your backs. And for him, besides really hitting the dig on the 3rd and 10 on the last drive of regulation, it was a lot of check downs and a couple crossers. I don't think he can do that against Alabama. I think they will be closer to the line of scrimmage like they were against Clemson, not respecting the deep pass. So to back them up, which Clemson never did, I really think they threw only one pass over 12 yards, and the rest were all these short intermediate passes. No one's backing up. They're not respecting you. And it's like you're playing in a closet. You got to get them out of there. You got to back them up a little bit, make them respect you. And I think that's something Georgia has to do in this game to give themselves breathing room. Because let me tell you something. You can't just take crossing routes and check downs because Alabama's going to cover them.
Tim, this game will be analyzed and overanalyzed, and you'll be part of a lot of that. If you had to pick one thing that one side or the other may have an advantage, where would it be?
One side or the other that has an advantage? I think it's handling the bright lights. And I think Alabama has been in so many of those situations that, and yes, Georgia's been in the SEC championship. They were in the Rose Bowl. Those are huge. But now they're going up against Alabama. And I just want to make sure that they're not walking in knowing that they're facing the A on the helmet, that they're not intimidated by that they're ready to go. And it's not Saban versus younger brother Smart. And I think it might take a couple plays to knock the rust off, but then I think you'll see two giants going fist to fist.
You get so excited for game. It's one of my favorite things about Tim. Tim gets so excited for the game. It's like you feel like you could either. A couple times I thought he would run out on the field, and I actually dare you to do that.
You ever thought about that?
Especially in the Sugar Bowl.
Can you imagine if just in the middle of warm-ups, Tim just runs out on the field? He's
one of the guys said when we were at the Sugar Bowl, and he's like, "Do you think you could go out there?" And I was like, "Give me about 13 minutes, and I would be strapped up, ready to go.
Take this suit off and get out there." But when you think about that perspective, I know you can't exactly gauge your own excitement. Just how excited, though, are you about this matchup?
I love it. Yeah. I love it because you look at the defense, you look at the physicality, you look at the coaching, and a lot of people will say they'll look at the Rose Bowl and the offense and everything, and that is exciting, and it's a great game. But you look at what goes into making greatness and great teams, and it's the defensive line, it's the physicality, it's the chip on their shoulder. Look at the way both of these teams played. When Georgia was down, the defense said, we're not going out like this, right? And Roquan Smith, after average first half, came and played lights out in the second half. And you look at the way Alabama's defense stepped up and said, oh, really? Y'all want to talk about us like that? Watch how Alabama plays. And you look at all the experts with Clemson. Alabama said, all right, we hear you. Watch what happens. That's why I love this game.
I have to ask you this because you were with us during the film room, and then the film room got confusing the other night because you and Marcus were on the field as the Rose Bowl was coming to an end, Tim. How are you? You're on the air with us, but I know you're watching somewhere. I don't know where that game is.
We had a little screen.
What was that like?
It was awesome. It was like me and Marcus were like, is this real? We got the end of this game, the beginning of this game. Does it get any better?
It's amazing.
I really do.
I wasn't sure what you guys were doing over there because I was on the sideline and I kept seeing this spotlight over there, especially when the lights went out in the stadium. I'm like, what are they doing? Can someone tell them to get off the sideline?
And all the fans that were behind us were watching our reactions to see what happened in the Georgia game.
That was true.
The one and only Tim Tebow. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see y'all in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll ask if we can have some more time later.
Yeah, are we going to break? Oh, yeah, we are. Okay. We'll be back in a moment. That's Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
That is the stadium.
Looks great. The ATL. Let's go. National Championship.
Georgia, Alabama. Alabama. What does that sound like for a national championship?
SEC.
Saban against Smart.
I'm sure it'll be a great football game.
Big bad Bama.
They look angry. They're just ferocious at the line of scrimmage.
Georgia gets to go home to Atlanta.
Georgia had to spend everything. It's also going to be chaotic and crazy in their home state.
Batman versus Superman.
We the one they talking about. We the one. We the one they talking about. We the one. We the one they talking about.
Now we got to focus on trying to finish.
2 SEC teams going at it, and I'm ready to get after it.
Let's see who wins it all. It'll be fun.
Back in Atlanta here with Paul and Tom Rinaldi joining us now. This is like a who's who of guests. I don't know who people think you are, but you have all the best people on this show today.
No.
This is impressive.
It's not a who's who. It's actually a who question mark. As Laura blew into the production office earlier, circulated, found time, Paul, to greet every single person in the office. And this was a tableau of that scene.
Yeah.
That was me looking to get something.
I have to tell
you,
he was busy.
My first year at ESPN, the SEC Nation show had not started, so they let me hang around game day for the season. And one day, Tom, I finally got up enough nerve about 6:45 in the morning. I walked over to you. I said, Tom, I need to talk to you about how you interview people, because I'm a student of that. And I was, for 30 minutes, I was literally captivated by everything he said, because he is the best in the world.
The best.
By the way, the
world.
Collective IQ of the show has plummeted since your departure.
No
one would protest that. Believe me,
I will agree with that. No, but truly, it was because I knew that we would spend this time together, and I also didn't want to interrupt you. Paul is right, though. I mean, you are very intimidating until you get to know you, and then it's like, oh, this guy, he's the coolest ever. But that's why I think you get so many good answers out of people, because they finally get to know you, and obviously it's the way that you phrase things too, but you have that great way about you.
Well, you obviously, in the format that you guys work in so much of the time, and in the different venues you're in, you understand that the simplest mission is to listen.
Yeah.
Listen to what the subject has to say, and from there, just as often as you can, ask a question that you have curiosity about. And I don't think those two things are too complicated.
Especially when you have to make a living trying to interview Tiger Woods in
the
past.
Good luck with that, right?
From Tiger Woods to Nick Saban, is there a difference, I would suppose?
So we've talked to Saban so often, and we had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him yesterday. And after talking to him, I could talk to him every day. I know that you guys could as well, because he's so interesting. But I decided to do use a device, if you will, because I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen him get knocked down on the sideline. So I decided to ask him a series of questions about the last time you went to a movie that made you cry. The last time you attended a sporting event as a fan. Wow. The last dream you woke up and remembered.
The last time you smiled.
We didn't go to that. Yeah. So we'll be showing a little bit of that. Some of those. They were interesting.
That is fascinating. And by the way, I'm sure you saw after he fell, he said at the end of the game, well, they just don't make him like they used to. He was fine. He was ready to go.
Which actually has a little bit of an origin story. He stands behind, as you know, when you go to Bama practice, he stands behind the offense a good deal of the time. So there have been times where Jalen will do something that he didn't predict, and Jalen gets close to him, but he had never knocked him down. And Saban would always kid him and say, "You'll never knock me down. I'm too quick. I'm too athletic. They don't make them like they used to." So after the game, Jalen found him and said, "Coach, that quickness, that athleticism that you talk about in practice, what happened?" Yeah, so he called him out on that.
And he fell down another time. Somebody else ran into him shortly after that. I mean, it was just like he was getting beat up. He was happy to win the game.
What was the most interesting last time question? How did he answer?
I think probably the most interesting was the last movie you went to that made you cry because of his preamble, which was, "I'm a sentimental guy at heart."
Nick Saban?
I said, "You are?" He said, "Yeah, most people might not think that." And then he thought about it a little bit, and he said, "Seabiscuit."
Wow.
Hey, Seabiscuit will get you now. Now watch out. Seabiscuit is like a Tom Rinaldi feature. You see it, you hear it coming, and you're like, oh no,
He's a movie guy, though. I remember Terry telling me one time that they would, when he first got there, they would drive up. She'd go buy the tickets. He'd hide in the car, and then as soon as the lights went down, he'd dash in.
Oh, that's great.
He does a similar thing when he goes to concerts too, I think.
Now, I felt like this past week in New Orleans, he was different. I felt he was a little more easygoing, a little more. What?
Human?
Yes, he was. I felt like he was joking, and people don't notice those little details because everyone just thinks of him one way. But he doesn't really fit into that box that we sometimes think he fits in. I thought he was kind of jovial in New Orleans, which made me think he felt really good about his team. So that was part of it. But what differences have you noticed in him?
Well, he certainly, and I know you guys have talked about this, and he certainly hasn't been jovial this week. I mean, the tight turnaround has bothered him. It's the tightest since the playoff format was created. But I also think when you take two steps past that, he understands that the winning the Sugar Bowl, and I don't know that I understood this. Maybe Minka Fitzpatrick made this clear to me. That, yes, this narrative about avenging the loss to Clemson is really not completely accurate. They were thrilled that they drew Clemson and they had the chance to beat them. But the much deeper pain in the program is not about the loss to a team. It's about the loss of the opportunity. The opportunity to win the national title, which obviously didn't work with 1 second left to go. That remains out there. Both teams have to recover from different sets of emotions. In this case, the Tide having to get over beating Clemson, and Georgia from that thriller, the double overtime in the Rose Bowl.
And Tom, on that point, I think a lot of people failed to comprehend this, but had Alabama pulled that off, that was going to go down as one of the greatest teams in college football history, and it all vaporized in a second.
I think that's a great point, and I'm sure some of the audience may know this, that there are different things that people do with a painful memory. There's sort of two schools of thought. You flush it away or discard it from your mind. The other is that you hold on to it. You learn from it or you use it as motivation. And in the case of a lot of the Tide players, it's the latter. And the example that I use is Minka Fitzpatrick, who put the image of the last-second touchdown on the dashboard of his car.
Have to ask a final question. It's not about anything important. I mean, I get dressed, I throw something on. I mean, you are the most interesting dresser in television.
He's got it going on.
What's the mindset behind how you present yourself?
Okay, I'm going to respectfully challenge you on something that you just said. First of all, that's incredibly complimentary, but interesting is a placeholder of a word. It has no meaning.
It doesn't.
It's a neutral space holder. So I'm going to push you to say, what do you mean by interesting, Paul?
Tie-wise, handkerchief-wise.
Combinations. Is that what you mean?
I'm not a good interviewer, so thanks for bailing me out there.
I'll just say,
put us together.
All my clothes come from the exact same place. My wife.
Really?
She's amazing. She has it going on.
She helps you.
Everything.
Okay.
Your wife does too.
I wish she did.
Okay, then maybe you need to enlist her. This is a little dark and dismal today.
This may sound crazy. May I borrow your wife?
Her tastes.
For my clothes, that's all.
No. I like how you dress, Paul.
Hey,
sharp.
On that note, I think we need to go to break. You just asked to borrow his wife. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Not really.
We know what you meant. Tom, we can't wait to see more from you this week. And I am really looking forward to that feature about when was the last time. That's going to be fun.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you.
Tom, thank you.
Plenty more to come, Paul, on this show. I think we're going to break. I don't know if we're actually going anywhere. But anyway, we don't want to, but we are here until we go. Maybe we're not. I guess we're still here.
Another year, another playoff. And you guessed it, another Bama road trip. A season-long destination. It's again a familiar journey for the Tide.
Oh my! Storybook it for the big man!
That's just how they roll.
Paul Paul Finebaum Show carries on from Atlanta. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the site of the national championship game presented by AT&T. That is on Monday. It's an all-SEC national championship between Alabama and Georgia. And now, as our beautiful guest list continues, we have Marty Smith joining us. I just felt like we need to get that out of the way. Beautiful is a good way to describe you. And we're going to do a little game here, guys. 4 questions you want answered on Monday. The first one, and we'll start with you, Marty, is all about Saban's legacy. With a loss, what would that mean for Saban's legacy?
He's still the greatest of all time.
I'm glad he got that question.
He's the greatest of all time, regardless.
I'm asking you too. Continue.
He's the greatest of all time, regardless of what happens on Monday night. If he wins on Monday night, there is truly no debate.
Yeah,
there's still a debate. I mean, he's in the sentence with Bryant now.
The win, I think the win just obliterates that conversation. A loss is tricky, and the reason I say that, Marty and Laura, is that we don't know how this chapter ends. If he loses and never wins again, critics will point harshly at losing championship games. Although we all realize how ridiculous that is, but Saban's at a different level than everyone else,
especially in this era. I mean, in this era, it is so difficult to attain sustenance.
Yeah.
Excellence over time is so hard because it's so hard to convince these young men consistently.
I will say this, though. Losing Monday night would be a lot better than losing last Monday night.
No question.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
To me, if they had lost the semifinal game, if he had lost to Dabo again,
that would have hurt.
That's when some questions might have arose, and they wouldn't have been fair, I don't think, because I still think in his time he has been.
I do think what he should do, though. I'm curious what you think. There's a famous picture, as you guys probably know, from the late '60s. Stallings played Bryant in the Cotton Bowl when
1967.
Coach Bryant helped pick Coach Stallings up. Now, imagine Saban picking Kirby up.
I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but I just thought it would be a great picture.
Listen, as Coach Saban would tell you, they don't make him like they used to. He might be able to lift him up.
I was on that previous note. I was talking to Calvin Ridley yesterday at Bama, and it kind of dawned on me while studying the chat with Calvin. Every single year he's been at the University of Alabama, he's played in the national championship game.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is.
Rashad Evans, talking to him, Rashawn Evans, this will be the 8th college football playoff game. It will be his 7th. I mean, that's all you need to tell these young men. Look, you're going to have a chance to do it.
And that's why I think experience really does factor in this type of stage. Next question for you guys. It's all about freshmen. Okay, so can Jake Fromm become the first freshman to win since 1985, Mark?
Can he? Yes. I think that the players around him are so good. He's a really good player, a very poised player. Their running game is elite, one of the best in college football, and they have a really good defense. So can he? Yes. If Alabama's front 7 plays like it did last Monday night, no, he can.
Yeah.
You always have to do the either or, don't you, Marty?
I just think that's fair. See, I'm not a pundit. I don't get paid to offer my opinion. I get paid to ask people,
and by the way,
decently good questions and report.
Congratulations.
Thank you so very much.
Congratulations.
Marty, I appreciate that. I'm
the
very
Marty
blessed
party
man.
continues.
Yeah, baby. Marty party.
Marty signed a Jimbo Fisher-like contract.
He did.
John Gruden type contract.
The rest of us are never signing any other contracts ever again, but that's great that we've got the Marty party. That's all that matters. Okay, what do you think about Fromm?
I think he's done it all year, and no surprise if he pulls this off. I mean, I somewhat expect him to have his team in serious contention at the end of that game.
Okay. Will Bo Scarborough be a factor? We know he's been a huge factor before for the Tide, especially last year. He obviously got injured, but they have other weapons. Do you think he's a factor?
If he didn't get injured last year, they'd probably beat Clemson.
Exactly.
He was dominant early in that game last year. Yes, he will be a factor. Yes, he will have to be a factor. I mean, again, they are running back by committee too, and I think Damian Harris is the best of the lot.
I agree. Yeah.
But Bo's going to have to be very physical. He's going to have to carry the load to a degree, and yes, he will have to, get 4 or 5 yards a pop.
I think he'll have to play well, but I don't think, unlike last year in the fourth quarter when Bo wasn't in the game, I don't think he is going to be a factor necessarily deciding the outcome.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I actually felt like Damian Harris ran better in the game against Clemson than Bo did.
I think he ran better all year.
Yeah.
Totally. But if we're talking about championship caliber games, and Bo has stood up big for some of those in the past, but I felt like he was kind of bouncing off defenders. He wasn't able to really get the yardage that he needed. Damian Harris is so versatile, but in that game, Damian Harris spent a large portion of the time on the bike because they do have that running back rotation.
He's
That's
angry.
what they've done all year. He's ready to go. I think he wants to prove even more. He had that big 4th-and-1 conversion, but he wanted to do even more in that game.
Damian is angry, and he's played angry all year long. I can remember the Texas A&M game. I was at Kyle Field for that game, and kind of during pregame warm-ups, I cut off the end zone. I was walking to the Bama sideline and walked through the end zone, and the running backs were doing their drills where they take the hand off and they're trying to knock the ball out of each other's hand. And he kind of ran up to me, and he said a few choice words, basically that it was going to be a show tonight, and the first play of the game he went 75 to the house.
I'm curious. I know I'm supposed to be answering questions, but I have a question for you and you because you've been with Alabama all week, but that team Monday night, especially on defense, was violent. Did you sense that?
Violent is the right word.
You felt it even before the game. And you're talking about, even Damian at that point. Even like hours before the game, Minkah Fitzpatrick was out there working with his artificial hamstring, which he ended up cutting off in the game because he felt like he didn't need it anymore, but they were trying to protect that hamstring. He was in such a zone at that point. There were some family members of team players for Alabama who were in the stands close by trying to get his attention. He wasn't even looking at him. They were so focused.
Like me with my family.
Well, yeah, you do that.
Thanksgiving.
Right.
I don't know you. I don't know you guys.
He does that to everybody anyway. But there was a different level of focus and a different level of intensity. They are always intense. They're always focused. That's Alabama. But toward the end of the season, Nick Saban admitted it. They had lost their identity a little bit. Yep. You felt a new resurgence. Violence is a good word, and I think just this level of pride. One thing too was the fact that there were all those guys that were there part of last year's defense. They had such unfinished business last year. Ryan Anderson, O.J. Howard was there too, but especially the defensive guys, they were on the sideline the entire time keeping those guys going. It felt like they were almost playing for those fellas too.
I talked to Saban on Tuesday, and I asked him, when during your tenure as a head coach do you recall a defense playing with that ferocity? And he said just once. The 2011 National Championship game against LSU is the only time as a head coach that he can remember. And he used the word ferocious. He used the word relentless. He used the term warrior-like mentality. Saban doesn't just throw that around. That's not his thing.
No.
So for him to be that complimentary of that group, it really shows how great they were.
Is an all-SEC championship good for college football?
No. It's great for the SEC, but I don't really care. It's two passionate fan bases. It's great for Alabama to be in the national championship. The ultimate national championship is Ohio State Bama. That's the ultimate national championship. Georgia has great fans. They're thrilled to be there. It's been a really long time, and they're playing at home. So all of that is really cool and will draw well, will garner interest. But I don't think it matters to college football if it's all SEC.
Okay.
I actually think it's terrible. And I don't say that as those of us on the inside, and we all know how these two teams got here. They earned it. But, if you're in New York or L.A., you just don't like the look of this game. You'll watch it. It may not I think the game will dictate whether the ratings are good or not, not the two teams, because people just flip around and see what's going on. But I think it gives the critics of college football, and there are many, a chance to stand on a soapbox. And this year, UCF became the pet that everyone wrapped their arms around. It wasn't so much about UCF, it was anti-SEC.
Yeah, and maybe even anti-Bama specifically, because some people still felt like Bama snuck in, although they beat the number one seed. So at this point, that story is a little tired.
Right, there's no debate. But the committee got it right.
They did.
They were validated with Alabama's dominance in spades, and just like they were in 2014 when they chose Ohio State. Granted, they won the league, but that's a whole other thing.
I like this Marty Paul party.
It's good.
That's a good party, man. Maybe I'll come to your house next Thanksgiving and you'll actually have somebody to talk to.
It's funny because Marty Party has a better ring than Pauly Party, but there's
still
something
pretty good.
there.
You have the alliteration.
I will say this: Marty Party does not have a better ring than what my true identity is, which is Pauly Positive.
Pauly Positive all the time. All the time.
Look at that big smile.
I want to know what y'all think about this UCF thing.
Oh, we're going to talk about it a lot.
I'll send you a memo on that.
Unfortunately, we're going to break here, but we will be back with more on that and plenty more on this national championship game here in Atlanta.